Alright, I'd like to welcome you to today's lesson on finding the equation of an exponential function when given 2 points. Alright, so the 2 points that we will be given are 4, 162 and 7, 4,374. Now remember, an exponential function with exponential growth or exponential decay is either going to go up very fast, or it also could go down or become extremely small. Right? So here we can clearly see that at 4,162, we're going to 4,374, that this is an increasing exponential function. So we want to find those things. And now remember, all exponential equations are a times b to the x. Here, a is our starting value, also are known as our 0th term, or the y-intercept. Here is our generator. Right? B is our generator. Sometimes it's also called the multiplier. Now, in this sense, when we're given these 2 points, we're not given either one of those 2 things, so we have to find those 2 things to be able to make our equation. However, we are given some things. All right, we're given x and y, and this is also written in that x, y format. So from that, we can create a system of equations. And the system that we can have is when we plug in both of these values here for x and y. So I can plug it into this generalized equation here. I can plug in my x and y. So I'm going to plug in 162 is equal to a times b to the 4th. Then I can also create a second equation that 4,374 is equal to a times b to the 7th. Now knowing that, I can then set them, with this system of equations, for 2 unknowns, here a and b, we have to have 2 equations, and we do. And we have these 2 equations. So now we have to find a way of solving for a and b. Well, what we can do is I can rewrite this equation here. I can rewrite it by dividing by b to the 4th on both sides, and I can get 162 over b to the 4th is equal to a. So now that I've rewritten this by dividing by b to the 4th on both sides, I can take this is a here, I can take this and replace it in here for a. So now my new equation now is going to be 4,374 is equal to 162 over b to the 4th times b to the 7th. And now I just need to solve for b. So now here, if I have this is the same as b to the 7th over 1. I can cancel b to the 4th, and that leaves b to the 3rd. So now my new equation is 4374 is equal to 162 b cubed. So now I have to take and divide by 162 on both sides. And here it cancels to 1, so I'm left with that b cubed is equal to, and here 4374 divided by 162, I believe, is 27. And so now that I know that b cubed is 27, there's 2 different routes I could do this. What cubed is 27? Or I could take the cube root of both sides, and in doing that I find that b is 3. Now that I know what b is, And then I can substitute that. Okay, so I know what that b is 3. Now I can substitute that into one of my two equations up here for b. So now I substitute in 162 is equal to a times 3 to the 4th. So I get 162 is equal to a times, and 3 to the 4th is 81. Divide by 81 on both sides, and I find that a is 2. So now I have a and b. So my final equation now is y equals 2 times 3 to the x. And so now I have the equation, that the exponential equation that goes through these 2 points. Now if I wanted to check it, I could plug in one of these 2 points into this equation and see, does it work? So we would have those things to be able to go through and do. Right? So now let's do one more here. Let's do actually 2 more. Right? So my next equation is, or my next 2 points are negative 464 and 2, 1. So I know that my exponential function goes through these 2 points. Now clearly we can see when we're going from negative 464 to 2, 1 that this is a decreasing function. And so going back to what you know about exponentials, right, you should know what the b value should be here. All right, anything that's decreasing, we know our b value is going to be between 0 and 1 because it's a decreasing function. Right, so I have my general equation, y equals a times b to the x, and again I'm going to just substitute in. Okay, so because I'm going to have 2 unknowns, I need 2 equations. The 2 equations I'm going to get are going to come when I plug in x and y in each one of these equations. So I'm going to have 64 is equal to a times b to the negative 4th. And my other equation is going to be here with 2, 1 is going to be 1 is equal to a times b squared. So again, now it's just a matter of solving here, solving the system that I would have. Right? So this one's clearly easier to solve for a. Right? So I'm going to take and divide by b squared on both sides. So I get that 1 over b squared is equal to a. And now I'm going to take that and plug it into this first equation. So I have 64 is equal to 1 over b squared times b to the negative 4th. Now again, 64 is equal to 1 over b squared times 1 over b to the 4th. So when I have that here, that's going to be 64 equals 1 over b to the 6th, because we multiply, we keep our base, and we add our exponents. So 1 over b to the 6th is going to equal 64. And then now we want to solve for this, so we want to have, if I multiply by b to the 6th on both sides, I get 64 b to the 6th equals 1. Divide by 64 on both sides, and I get that b to the 6th is equal to 1/64. Now I could have went up here in this situation and just said that the reciprocal is going to equal each other, but now I have b to the 6th. Right, so now I have to figure out, okay, now what to the 6th power is 1/64? Well, we know that it's a fraction, and we know that b has to be between 0 and 1 here. Right, so what to the 6th power, or what multiplied by itself 6 times, is going to give me 64, and we know that is 1/2. So now I have my b is 1/2. So now that I know my b is 1/2, now I have to figure out what my a is. And I'm going to take this b being 1/2, and I'm going to plug it into one of my two original equations. This one's clearly the easiest to be able to do. So I have 1 is equal to a times 1/2 squared. 1/2 squared is 1/4. So I have a times 1/4. And then what times a fourth is 1, or if I multiply by 4 on both sides, I get that a is 4. So now that I know what a and b are, now I can take my general equation and plug them in, and I get y equals 4 times 1/2 to the x. And that is the equation for the exponential, the decreasing exponential, that goes through these 2 points, -4, 64, and 2, 1. Right, so again, just another way of finding that we would have. So that would be another one that we would have. Again, if we wanted to check it, just plug in one of the 2 points and see if it works. All right, you plug in -4 and 64 and see what happens there. Okay, so you would have those ones. All right, so let's do one more here. This time I'm going to have 3 -250 and 6 -31,250. Again, we have our function, or our exponential function, that it's going in one direction. Right now this one is decreasing, but it's decreasing another way. And so let's take a look at this, what we would have here. Right, so we're going to go through, and again we create our 2 equations to solve for our 2 unknowns. Again, our general equation, y equals a times b to the x. So I have here -250 is equal to a times b cubed, and -31,250 is equal to a times b to the 6th. So again here now we want to go through and solve this. So we want to solve one of these for a and then substitute it in. All right, so I'm going to take this one and I'm going to solve this one, so it's -250 over b cubed is equal to a. And then now I'm going to take this here and substitute it back in this equation for a. So I get -31,250 is equal to -250 over b cubed times b to the 6th. Now here the b cubed cancels with the b to the 6th and leaves a b cubed. So I have -31,250 is equal to -250 b cubed. Divide by -250 on both sides. Dividing by -250 on both sides, I get that b cubed is equal to, how many times does 250 go into that? It's going to go in, let's see, 4 times is 1,000, right? So we go through it, so that's going to be, let's see, b cubed would be, is it 125? Right, so now that I know that, so what cubed is 125, so I know that b is 5. So now I got to find out what a is. So -250 is equal to a times 5 cubed. Again, plugging it into this formula here, and now solve for a. -250 is equal to a times 125. Divide by 125 on both sides. And I get that a is -2, b is 5, so I can write my generic equation, y equals -2 times 5 to the x. And there's the equation of the function, the exponential function that goes through those points. Again, if you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to ask one of us here at the high school when it comes to this. Thanks. Bye-bye.